Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For assignment 3, our group do a topic in sustainable tourism and conservation of historical site. So for this presentation, it includes the introduction of the topic, and then finding in literature review, discussion and summary from 20 research papers we gathered, the major research trend, the analysis on the technique of data collection, and the last one is one strong article. So to introduce this topic, history has been a major drive for visitor to do tourism activities. So if you're looking to the trend, history is always the reason for people around the world to go and visit places. So sustainable tourism, in the other hand, it aims to recognize all of tourism effect, positive and also the harmful one, and to reduce the negative effect and also increase the good one. So in tourism, heritage structure are um, among among the famous destination. So it particularly not usually known as a sustainable one. So the study discussed both aspects of realization of heritage tourism as way of promoting heritage as well as to ensure the process in between to make sure it is friendly to the earth and sustainable for the tourism industry itself.
Okay, as for the literature review, I'm going to talk about the sustainable tourism and its activities. So as for the December 2021, there's 1,154 heritage sites under the UNESCO, such as Taj Mahal in India, Serengeti National Park in northern Tanzania, and historic sanctuary of Machu Picchu in the eastern Cordillera of southern Peru. So all these sites serve their own value, and uh, even some of them have a mixed value. For example, the sanctuary of Machu Picchu has both culture and natural value. Therefore, the government are trying to promote tourism in their heritage site to gain funding to preserve them and to boost economy. So there's different types of tourism, such as sustainable tourism, ecological tourism, and heritage tourism. Sustainable tourism is a type of tourism that helps to preserve the site, while the heritage tourism encompasses both eco and cultural tourism with a focus on natural and cultural heritage preservation, while the ecological tourism focuses on tourism for the ecological system of flora and fauna. Next, the heritage sites have many differences and criteria to be considered as a tourism part, such as the variance in area, the management regime, traits, species, habitats, and the ecosystem, as well as the numerous social, political, cultural, and economic characteristics. Sustainable tourism, according to Hamwood 2018, is a development strategy that manages all resources for economic, social, and aesthetic needs of local and visitors, as well as for future generations. So next is a type of tourism, which is there's two types. For the first one is soft tourism, which is it include the individual travel, which is travel with family or friend on and had long duration and long time spent in the area, and the travel mode best suit to their purpose and often use a slow vehicle. So the second type is hard tourism, which is a mass tourism and also institutionalized, and it has short duration and which is short time spent in the areas. They use a fast vehicle and fast travel modes, and also have fixed prepare program of the tour. So next is the soft tourism activities. There's for the first type, which is the nature-based activity. They can do like hiking, biking, ecotourism, and what they and ground sport for. And for the next type, which is activity related to the local cultural resources, which is they can visit the physical object of cultural heritage, which is building, folk art object, costume, food, and drink. And they can the tourists can enjoy and learning intangible cultures such as traditions, costume, tales, and song, dances, procedure, or making of food and drinks and craft. For the next type is the ecotourism, which is the tourism to the natural regions and associate cultural that include educational and interpretive components. It is a small scale and bottom-up organized, and it reduces harmful impact on nature and culture, and also support the nature area protection. For the last type, it's a cultural heritage tourism, which is visit places that had present and past culture, for example, historical attraction, landmark, and museum and festival. For the next one is the impact of tourism on heritage sites. So there's two impact, which is there's negative and positive impact. So for the negative impact, it's rapidly the heritage site cannot keep up with the rapidly developing tourism sector and the population pressure, pollution, and the conflict between local tourists, the government, and other stakeholders. So they also had an increased visitor pressure, which is can lead to traffic congestion, heavy traffic, infrastructure development, and air, noise, and water pollution. However, there's a positive impact, which is it can benefit the social and economy and environment. So it also help to raise the awareness for the local and the tourists about the importance of the sustaining the heritage site. So people also can gain benefit, which is uh, with their economy when they provide service to the tourists by learning how to treat the tourists, become the tour guide, or sell local product to the tourists, which is there's something the local can do. So that's all for me. I will pass to Laina.
Bismillah, my name is Laina Ratamani, and today I will do my part on the discussion and summary of all the materials. So first of all, I would like to start that the materials ranges from conservation aspects of heritage tourist spots and how to make them sustainable, like in the cases of historic district in Santiago de Compostela, Petra in Jordan, and rock art in South Africa. To begin with, the paper by Budiaf 2019 focuses on the utilization of tourism development in historic sites and how to make it um, much more popular, and I found that our urban areas in urban areas, preservation is not a priority for tourists, and adaptive reuse to modern living is. And it's also important to add community aspect into the site so the neighborhood can have a connection to the site. In the following article by Spina, it looked deeply into the adaptive reuse of sustainable way in context of historical fortification and Strait of Messina in Italy. The method used was qualitative and quantitative, and I found that the decision-making for heritage tourism development is best in the form of Poggio alternative. In the following article by Spina, it looked deeply into the adaptive reuse of sustainable way in context of historical fortification and Strait of Messina in Italy. The method used was qualitative and quantitative, and I found that the decision-making for heritage tourism development is best in the form of Poggio alternative. And in contrast, the study by Lucci 2014, it researched how photovoltaic system can be applied as part of the architecture of the heritage building, and I found that since the photovoltaic system can cover 68% of electrical consumption, it is sustainable. But in order to add it onto architectural heritage buildings, it has to be regularly maintained and properly applied onto it with proper knowledge on how to apply and how to operate the system, and it should not disturb the aesthetic visuals of the site.
and research by Southey et al. In 2018 and discusses how different aspects of tourism and instead focus on it doesn't really discuss on tourism but focuses on how unmanned aerial vehicle can be used to um, see the damages on the on the site and found that it is very useful and efficient and can aid in conservation of heritage sites. In a following article by Al-Zaizi in 2014, it focuses on sustainable tourism through the tourist aspect in Petra, Jordan, which is contrasting with Luca 2020 research on how to control tourist flow. So in the first article by Al-Zaizi in Petra, found that tourists mostly spend 2 to 3 hours on the main trail in Petra, and most of the time were controlled by tour guides. In contrast, in Luca et al. 2020 research, I found that the best way to manage over tourism is to have sub-management strategies in different themes, and that is the most efficient way to curb over tourism. As for the relationship between the tourism and sustainability, in an article by ANUP 2018, I found that tourists are drawn more to ecotourism because they are aware of the positive impacts on the planet. And in the study by Cardenas et al. In 2015, found that women care more about the importance of resources than men, and those who often go bird watching, museums, and festival will understand more about sustainable tourism development. As for the case in Indonesia by study by Omar 2013, it found that the knowledge on cultural heritage is sufficient and almost 50% learned cultural heritage at school. So that's all for the discussion and summary. Thank you very much.
So to the next point, which is the major research trend for the data collection. So the major research methods that are used in research study on sustainable tourism are qualitative methods, because to identify people's belief and also the experiences, especially in tourism that are related with the history. So for example, the answers to the question why, which is the qualitative method, rather than how many, which is the quantitative method, it's more important to researchers in this case. So this promote the value of conducting field researches as that we have collected 20 articles to identify the method used under the qualitative, such as the observation, opinion, surveys, data collection, analysis, experiment, questionnaires, and also the personal interview. And however, from Melanie D. Benjamin on 2014, in the article that mentioned the article mentioned that to understand the tourist and develop recommendation for sustainable tourism, there are two types of data that were used under the qualitative methods, which is the first one is in the information on how tourists behave and their motive for visiting the historical site, and the second information is on how tourists behave and why they choose that specific location. So moving on to the quantitative method. So quantitative method also has been applied the most in the research. So quantitative is the process of collecting and evaluating numerical data, such as from the research article that use quantitative to identify the statistic percentage population of sustainable tourism activities at the historical site, as well as for ecotourism issues.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dua Abdul Ghaffur, and here I'll be discussing about the article that gives strength to this topic. So the most relevant article for this study is Boysid Bodia's Tourism and the Heritage Conservation of Historical Areas. He gives detailed information about the influence of tourism growth on the preservation of historical sites in this article. He also discussed the strategies and implementation policies for tourism development. and cited the case study of Ajman to demonstrate his thesis. He believes that the preservation of the historical area might be seen as one of the tasks of the architects and decision makers. Each action taken should highlight the sensitivity of the area because any large and or huge project might have environment damage that might be irreversible. He also suggests that the approach of small and limited interventions in or nearby the historical area will lead from a socio-economic point of view to the preservation of traditions and customs. This transformation has another value that has seen as a source of creating jobs and source of income for the owners and shopkeepers.